Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Twin Rivers Triangle Environmental Coalition meeting. On behalf of Chasten Gold nonprofit, we sincerely thank you for joining us. We are grateful to welcome those attending in person, as well as everyone participating online. I will be serving as tonight's facilitator alongside our TAG Grant community engagement representatives and technical advisors. Tonight's meeting is titled Understanding the Site Investigation Process. We will explain how environmental professionals collect samples, test soil, groundwater, air, and soil vapor, review laboratory data, prepare technical reports, and make recommendations about additional investigation or cleanup. We recognize that environmental investigations can feel complicated or unfamiliar. Terms such as sampling, laboratory analysis, groundwater monitoring, soil vapor, and regulatory review may sound highly technical. Our goal is to make this information easier to understand so residents can ask informed questions and confidently participate in discussions regarding the Twin Rivers Triangle site. Whether this is your first coalition meeting or you have attended previous meetings, we are glad you are here. Your participation, questions, and lived experiences are valuable to this process. Before we begin tonight's educational topic, we would like to introduce Chasten Gold for anyone joining us for the first time. Chasten Gold nonprofit is committed to advancing environmental health, racial equity, housing stability, and community empowerment across Sacramento and surrounding counties. We work in partnership with residents, community organizations, and public agencies to amplify local voices, provide independent technical assistance, and address systemic barriers through direct service and advocacy. Our organization also focuses on engaging and empowering impoverished and unhoused veterans, families, and individuals who may need assistance with employment, shelter, environmental information, or other services available within their local communities. Through this technical assistance grant, Chasten Gold helps community members understand technical environmental information, formulate questions, participate in meetings, and remain informed about investigation and cleanup activities. Our purpose is not to replace the regulatory agencies or environmental consultants responsible for the site. Instead, we serve as an independent community resource that helps residents understand the information being presented and identify questions that deserve further explanation. At the heart of the technical assistance grant is a simple truth. Communities deserve to be heard, informed, and empowered. Through this grant, we provide trusted support to help residents better understand environmental issues, participate in decision-making, and advocate for lasting change. Whether someone is trying to navigate a complicated cleanup process, understand a technical report, or learn how environmental conditions could affect their neighborhood, Chasten Gold is here to help ensure that community voices are amplified and supported by technical guidance and educational resources. Together, we are not only addressing contamination, we are also building pathways toward environmental justice, transparency, accountability, and a healthier future. Environmental decisions should not be made without considering the experiences and concerns of the people who live, work, attend school, travel, and raise their families near a site. Your voice is not separate from the technical process. Community participation is an important part of that process. Let us review tonight's agenda. First, we will explain what environmental sampling is and why it is conducted. Second, we will discuss soil, air, soil vapor, and groundwater testing. Third, we will review what happens after samples are collected, including laboratory analysis, technical reports, regulatory review, and investigation timelines. Our research topic will address why environmental investigations may take a significant amount of time and why investigations are often completed in phases. We will then review a community question, conduct an interactive breakout session, discuss what information would help residents feel more informed, and conclude with tonight's key takeaways. Please feel welcome to write down questions as we proceed. We will provide time for community questions and discussion later in the meeting. Before discussing environmental sampling, let us briefly revisit the Twin Rivers Triangle site. The project site is located in Sacramento, California. The Technical Assistance Grant Program provides funding to eligible communities so they can obtain independent technical assistance. Technical advisors help explain technical information so residents can become more informed and meaningfully involved in cleanup sites and response actions. A response action generally refers to work performed to investigate, address, control, or clean up an actual or potential release of contamination at a property under regulatory oversight. The Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency, commonly known as SHRA, purchased the Triangle site in July 2011. The acquisition was intended to support two primary purposes. The first was to transfer the light rail station portion of the property to Sacramento Regional Transit for the development of a light rail station. The second was to support redevelopment of the Triangle housing site with residential units and potentially ground floor retail space. Cleanup addressing heavy metal impacts in near-surface soil was performed at the light rail site in 2023. Additional environmental assessment and subsequent cleanup activities were planned for the Triangle housing site during the 2025 to 2026 period. This background is important because environmental investigation and cleanup decisions must consider the site's history, existing conditions, previous sampling results, future land use, and the people who may use the property. We will now begin our first major topic, environmental sampling. Environmental professionals cannot fully understand site conditions by looking at a property from the surface. Soil may appear normal even when laboratory testing identifies contaminants beneath the ground. Groundwater may look clear but still require chemical analysis. Certain vapors may not be visible or easily detected without specialized equipment. For these reasons, environmental professionals collect samples. Sampling provides physical evidence and measurable data that can help answer important questions about a site. Environmental sampling is the collection of environmental information to understand site conditions. Samples may be collected from soil, groundwater, surface water, soil vapor, indoor air, outdoor air, sediment, or other environmental materials, depending on the site and the questions investigators are trying to answer. Sampling generally helps answer three major questions. What is present? This means identifying whether contaminants or chemicals are detected in the sample. Where is it located? This helps investigators determine whether a contaminant is located in one isolated area, across several areas near the surface, or deeper underground. How much is there? Laboratory results help determine the concentration or amount of a substance found in a sample. Sampling can be compared to medical testing. A doctor typically gathers information and orders appropriate tests before making a diagnosis or recommending treatment. Similarly, environmental professionals collect data before determining whether further investigation, protective actions, or cleanup may be necessary. Sampling does not automatically mean that a dangerous condition has been confirmed. It is the process used to gather the information needed to evaluate site conditions. Environmental investigations may examine several different parts of the environment. Tonight, we will focus on soil sampling, groundwater sampling, and soil vapor testing. Each type of sampling answers different questions. Soil sampling may help identify contamination in the ground. Groundwater sampling may help determine whether contamination has reached water beneath the surface or is moving underground. Soil vapor testing may help identify gases located in the spaces between soil particles. Investigators determine which types of sampling are appropriate based on the property's history, previous results, possible contaminants, site conditions, and potential ways people could be exposed. Let us begin with soil sampling. Investigators collect soil samples to determine whether contaminants are present, where they are located, how deep they may extend, and whether they could create potential exposure concerns. Samples may be collected near the surface or from deeper underground. Surface soil sampling can be important when evaluating places where people may directly contact dirt or dust. Deeper soil sampling can help determine whether contamination extends below the surface or could affect other environmental areas. Soil samples may be collected with hand tools, direct push equipment, drilling equipment, or other specialized methods. The sampling team documents each location and depth. The samples are labeled, properly stored, and transported to a laboratory under procedures intended to preserve their integrity. Investigators do not choose sample locations randomly without a plan. They may select locations based on historical property uses, former buildings, storage areas, spills, stained soil, previous results, utility corridors, drainage areas, or concerns reported by residents. Community knowledge can therefore be valuable. A longtime resident may remember a former business, dumping activity, flooding pattern, construction project, or unusual odor that is not immediately obvious from reviewing the current property. Groundwater is water located beneath the Earth's surface. It fills spaces and cracks within underground soil, sand, gravel, and rock. Groundwater is different from a river or pond that can be seen from the surface. Environmental professionals may install monitoring wells to collect groundwater samples. These wells provide access to groundwater at selected locations and depths. Testing may help investigators identify contaminants in groundwater, determine whether contaminants are moving, monitor changes over time, and support decisions about investigation or cleanup. Groundwater movement is important because water beneath the surface does not always remain in one place. It can move according to underground conditions and the natural direction of groundwater flow. Investigators may collect groundwater samples more than once. Multiple sampling events can show whether concentrations are increasing, decreasing, remaining stable, or changing with the seasons. A monitoring well is not necessarily a drinking water well. Its purpose is usually to collect environmental data and monitor subsurface conditions. Our next topic is soil vapor. Soil vapor refers to gases located within the open spaces between soil particles. Certain chemicals can evaporate and become vapors beneath the ground. Depending on the type of chemical and the site's conditions, vapors may move through underground spaces. Soil vapor testing may help determine where the vapors are present beneath a property, identify possible migration pathways, and determine whether additional evaluation is needed. This type of testing is commonly considered at former industrial properties or locations where volatile chemicals may have been used, stored, or released. The presence of a chemical in soil vapor does not automatically establish that people are being exposed. Investigators must evaluate whether there is a complete exposure pathway. That means examining whether the contaminant can travel from its source to a location where a person could actually come into contact with it. This is why environmental investigations often require several types of information rather than relying on one sample or one test. This slide shows the general progression from sample collection to environmental decision making. The first step is sample collection. Qualified personnel collect soil, groundwater, soil vapor, air, or other environmental samples according to an approved plan or investigation strategy. The next step is a laboratory analysis. Samples are transported to a laboratory where specialized equipment is used to test for particular chemicals or contaminants. The laboratory then produces results showing what was detected and the concentration of each detected substance. After that comes data review. Environmental professionals examine the laboratory results, sampling locations, depths, quality control information, site history, and other available evidence. The next step is the preparation of technical reports. Reports explain the investigation methods, sampling locations, laboratory results, maps, conclusions, limitations, and recommendations. Reports may then undergo regulatory review. The responsible oversight agency evaluates whether the work was properly completed and whether the information is sufficient to support the conclusions. The agency may approve the report, request clarification, require revisions, or determine that more sampling is needed. The final step shown is additional investigation or cleanup decisions. Sometimes the information is sufficient to move toward cleanup planning. In other situations, more data must be collected before a responsible decision can be made. We will now discuss reports and timelines. Community members sometimes receive a notice that sampling occurred, but do not immediately see a final report. That delay can be frustrating, especially when residents are concerned about their neighborhood. However, several steps occur between collecting a sample and releasing a reviewed technical report. Samples must be analyzed, data must be validated and interpreted, maps and tables must be prepared, conclusions must be written, and the regulatory agency must have an opportunity to review the work. Chasten Gold encourages residents to ask where a document is in the review process, when a public version may become available, and whether a plain language summary will be provided. An environmental investigation timeline may include a site history review, initial sampling, laboratory analysis, technical reports, regulatory review, additional investigations, and public engagement. A site history review may involve examining historical maps, aerial photographs, permits, property records, business directories, and previous environmental reports. Initial sampling provides the first set of current site data. Laboratory analysis then identifies what substances are present and at what concentrations. Technical reports organize the result and explain their significance. Regulatory reviewers examine the work and may identify additional questions or data gaps. Additional investigations may then be necessary. Public engagement should also be included so residents have opportunities to learn about findings, ask questions, review available documents, and provide input. Many environmental investigations occur over multiple years. The length of an investigation can depend on the size of the site, the number and types of contaminants, the depth of contamination, groundwater conditions, laboratory schedules, regulatory requirements, funding, property access, seasonal conditions, and whether additional sampling is required. A longer timeline does not automatically mean that nothing is happening. However, residents have a reasonable interest in receiving timely and understandable updates about the work being completed. Tonight's research topic is why environmental investigations take time. Environmental investigations often occur in phases. A phased investigation means that professionals collect an initial set of information, review the results, identify remaining questions, and then design the next phase based on what was learned. For example, an initial soil sample may identify a contaminant in one location. Investigators may then need additional samples around that location to determine how far the affected area extends. If contamination is found at greater depth, investigators may need deeper samples. If results suggest that groundwater could be affected, monitoring wells may be proposed. This process allows later sampling to be more focused and informed by earlier results. Phased investigations can improve accuracy because investigators are not forced to make every decision before any data have been collected. The central idea on this slide is that more reliable data often lead to better decisions. At the same time, agencies and project teams should communicate clearly about why another phase is needed, what questions it will answer, and how the results will affect the next decision. We received a community question from Tamara S., who asked, why don't investigators simply test every square foot of a site? Thank you, Tamara. This is an excellent and very understandable question. Testing every square foot of a property would generally be impractical, highly disruptive, extremely expensive, and unnecessary under standard scientific sampling approaches. Instead, investigators design a sampling plan intended to provide useful and representative information. They may begin with locations where contamination is considered most likely based on site history, former operations, visible conditions, previous results, drainage patterns, or known releases. They may also include background or comparison locations. If the results reveal a concern, additional samples can be collected around or beneath that area to better define the boundaries. This process is sometimes called defining the nature and extent of contamination. However, community members still have the right to ask whether enough locations were tested, whether the selected depths were appropriate, whether important areas were overlooked, and whether more sampling is necessary. The purpose of technical review is to examine those exact questions. We will now transition into tonight's interactive breakout session. We will divide participants into 4 groups. For those attending online, we will place participants into 4 virtual breakout rooms when possible. Those joining by telephone or unable to enter a breakout room may remain in the main session with a facilitator. Each group will imagine that it is an environmental investigation team. Your group has enough funding to select only 5 initial sampling locations. Discuss the following questions. Where would you place the 5 samples? Why would you choose those locations? What additional information would help you make the decision? What community knowledge would be useful? Consider the property's history, former industrial activities, visible conditions, drainage patterns, nearby homes, areas where children may play, previous sampling information, and observations reported by residents. Please select one person to serve as your group spokesperson and another person to take brief notes. You will have approximately 10 to 15 minutes. When we return, the mediator will read responses from 2 groups aloud. Additional group responses will be documented for the meeting record. We will now begin the breakout session. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for participating in the exercise. We hope this activity demonstrated that choosing sampling locations requires investigators to combine scientific information, property history, professional judgment, and community knowledge. We will now hear two group responses, which will be read aloud by your group mediator.
Group 1 selected the following locations: an area associated with a former industrial operation, a location near visible staining or evidence of previous material storage, a low-lying drainage area where water and soil may collect, a location near the proposed residential development area, a comparison location believed to be outside the most likely affected area. Our group members said that we would first review historical aerial photographs, property records, previous sampling maps, and information about former businesses. And also, my group also said it would ask longtime residents whether they remembered unusual odors, dumping, truck activity, flooding, or changes to the property.
No one else? Okay. Thank you, Group 1. And for those that identified our important principle, sampling decisions are strongest when multiple forms of information are considered together. A historical record may identify where a business operated. A previous report may show where a contaminant was detected. A map may identify drainage or groundwater direction. A resident may provide lived knowledge about an activity that was never formally documented. Together, those sources can help create a stronger investigation strategy. Our broader discussion question is, what information would help residents feel more informed about environmental investigations? Please feel welcome to answer in person through the online comment section or by email after tonight's meeting. Possible examples might include plain language summaries of technical reports, maps showing where samples were collected, explanations of laboratory results, updates about when additional sampling will occur, information about who is responsible for each phase, clear descriptions of what has been confirmed and what remains uncertain, advance notice of activities that may create noise, dust, traffic, or temporary access restrictions. We will now open the floor and online chat for comments. Let us review what we learned tonight. We learned that environmental sampling is the process of collecting environmental information to understand site conditions. We discussed why soil is sampled and how results can help identify the presence, location, depth, and possible extent of contamination. We discussed groundwater and how monitoring wells help investigators evaluate underground water conditions and potential contaminant movement. We explained soil vapor and why vapor testing may be considered near former industrial properties. We also reviewed how environmental reports are developed, from sample collection and laboratory analysis to data review, technical reporting, regulatory review, and additional investigation or cleanup decisions. Finally, we discussed why investigations may take time and why phased investigations can help professionals collect better information before making major decisions. Tonight's message can be summarized in one sentence. Good environmental decisions depend on reliable information, transparent communication, careful oversight, and meaningful community participation. This coalition is meaningful for several reasons. First, it helps address environmental inequities. Many low-income and historically marginalized neighborhoods experience greater exposure to pollution, contaminated properties, industrial activities, and poor environmental conditions. Environmental justice requires us to recognize those inequities and work toward cleaner, safer conditions for everyone. Second, the coalition empowers community voices. Residents deserve a seat at the table when decisions are being made about their health, land, housing, neighborhood, and future. Community members should be heard, informed, and involved throughout environmental decision making. Third, the coalition promotes accountability and action. By bringing together residents, advocates, technical experts, organizations, and public agencies, the coalition can ask important questions, request clearer information, identify community priorities, and support solutions that protect public health and the environment. Community participation should remain respectful, informed, and focused on achieving meaningful outcomes. There are several ways to support this work. You can engage with the coalition by attending meetings in person, participating through the live online question and answer section, and submitting comments before or after each meeting. You can volunteer or assist with outreach activities. You can provide research, surveys, community observations, lived experiences, and questions for our technical advisors to review. Information and questions may be sent to support@chastengold.org. You can also share coalition information with neighbors, community groups, local organizations, schools, churches, and other trusted networks. Participation does not require a technical background. Community knowledge and lived experience are valuable contributions. Community members who volunteer or support Chasten Gold may have opportunities to be recognized through our website or annual report, receive invitations to fundraising and community events, and join a committed network of individuals working toward a healthier future. More importantly, volunteers help extend the reach of environmental education and community engagement. They may help distribute information, collect feedback, support community events, connect residents with resources, or ensure that people who cannot attend meetings still receive important updates. Every contribution of time, knowledge, outreach, or support helps strengthen the community. We welcome continued communication after tonight's meeting. Questions, comments, research links, community observations, or requests for clarification may be emailed to support@chastengold.org. Additional information about Chasten Gold and our community programs is available at www.chastengold.org. Please include Twin Rivers Triangle TAG in your email subject line when possible so the message can be directed to the appropriate team member. We also encourage residents to identify the specific slide, report, sampling location, or environmental term connected to their question. That information can help our team provide a clearer and more useful response. As we conclude, we want to thank everyone who joined us in person and online. Thank you for listening, participating in the breakout exercise, asking thoughtful questions, and sharing your experiences. Environmental investigations can be complex, but communities should never be expected to navigate them alone. Through education, independent technical assistance, and continued participation, residents can become stronger advocates for themselves, their families, and their neighborhoods. Please continue submitting questions and comments, and your participation helps strengthen this coalition and contributes to a more transparent and community-centered environmental process. On behalf of Chasten Gold nonprofit, our technical advisors, community engagement representatives, volunteers, and project partners, Thank you for being part of tonight's Twin Rivers Triangle Environmental Coalition meeting. Please travel home safely, take care of yourselves and one another, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Sacramento.